Welcome to Stories Between Us, a podcast of short, fictional stories about the lives, tension, and intimacy between queer men. These episodes are for mature audiences and may include explicit themes. Told through AI voice narration, each episode drops you into a moment, a glance, a decision, a connection that lingers. Stories that feel real, sometimes sexy, sometimes messy, and always rooted in what's felt, even when it's never said. He was an African prince, always dressed in suits that made people stand a little straighter when he entered the room. Beside him, always just a step away, was the man no one dared to question, the head of security. He had a stare that could freeze anyone who looked too long. To the world, they were duty and protection. To each other, they were something else entirely. What started as stolen glances in the quiet corners of the estate had become a love affair hidden inside royal walls. A prince bound to his bloodline, a guard bound to his oath, both bound to a secret that could never be spoken out loud. At sunrise, the estate stretched wide across manicured lawns, the glass walls of the mansion catching the first heat of morning. The prince stood in the quiet shadows near the main house, jacket undone, silk sash loose against his chest, the family crest ring heavy on his finger. Power didn't look heavy on him, however. It looked natural. The head of security approached like he always did, steady, grounded, a man who carried the weight of protection on his shoulders. His beard trimmed close, shirt sleeves rolled, his body ready for whatever came. But in this moment, he wasn't just guarding the prince. He was breathing the same slow morning air with him. Their eyes locked. This tension wasn't new. They'd shared nights in quiet rooms, mornings that blurred the line between duty and desire. Every time they promised it was the last hookup, it never really was the last. Now, under the burn of sunrise, it felt final. The black SUV waited in the distance, doors closed, engine silent. Somewhere inside the estate, cameras blinked red. It was a world too sharp, too exposed for what they carried in their chests. The prince straightened, the weight of his role slipping back over his shoulders like a crown he didn't need to touch. His lover stayed still, lips damp, breath uneven, the taste of the prince still on his tongue. The air between them carried the weight of what had just happened. A morning blowjob stolen in the shadows, given before the estate stirred, before duty could reclaim them both. And when the first voices stirred, servants, advisors, footsteps echoing through the glass halls, they pulled apart. Two men once more, a prince and his protector. Nothing more, nothing less. Some love stories don't end with a kiss. They end with a look. And sometimes, that's the weight that lingers the longest. A secret can survive in silence, but when politics enter the room, silence becomes impossible. That was part one of the African prince and the head of security. They both stole their moments in the shadows of the estate. At sunrise, they were just two men caught in a love affair that no one could ever know. But secrets don't stay buried forever. In part two, the walls of the estate close in, and one wrong move threatens to expose everything. The estate was busier than usual. SUVs lined the driveway. Advisors moved quickly across marble floors, voices low and urgent. The prince had returned from a meeting with foreign officials, his cream suit traded for darker tones. The weight of expectation pressed into every step. The head of security stayed close, always close, but today, the distance between them felt wider. Orders barked, radios buzzing, extra eyes on every corner. This wasn't routine. Something was shifting. That night, in the West Wing, the prince slipped away, a quiet exit, a door shutting soft against the noise of politics. In a dim hallway, the head of security waited. The moment their eyes met, the air felt flirty. All those stolen mornings had taught them how to move in sync, how to slip through the estate without a sound. But tonight, every step felt too loud. The prince leaned close and told him to follow. They walked down the hall toward the library, passing clusters of political figures who were taking a break from the meeting. Advisors with drinks in hand, a few foreign officials laughing quietly, guards stationed at every corner. The prince moved smoothly, nodding where needed, but never breaking stride until they reached the tall doors at the end of the hall. Inside the library, the door shut behind them. The prince didn't waste a second. He pressed the head of security back against the wall, mouths colliding in a hot, hungry kiss. Hands pulled at each other, the guard's grip sliding over the prince's ass, the prince's hand pressing firm against the front of the guard's slacks. Their breathing turned rough, kissing harder, like it was the only thing keeping them both alive. The prince pulled back just enough to speak, the voice low but sharp. "Keep your eyes and ears on a swivel. Something big is happening. And after these international meetings, I'm not sure what will be the fallout." Before the head of security could answer, the sound hit them. It was the twist of the doorknob. They froze. The prince pushed him back quickly, straightened his jacket, both of them silent as the door swung open. His father stepped in with a visiting official, smiling as he began to show off the great library. In those few seconds, the head of security slipped out through a side door, the prince already moving toward the shelves like he'd been there all along. The cover worked, but suspicion lingered. They'd been too close, too careless. And now someone might have noticed. In part 2, their secret nearly came undone in the estate library. Now the palace is swarming with press. The prince's father steps to the podium, the world watching, and what he says changes everything. A sudden policy shift raises the stakes for the monarchy. But behind closed doors, the real blow lands closer to home. The head of security is being removed. And for the prince and his protector, that decision leads to one final night. Part 3, the final part, starts now. The estate burned with light. Cameras flooded the front steps, press crews shouting questions as the king approached the microphone. The prince stood behind him, face set, expression controlled. The king's voice cut through the night. A new alliance. A sudden policy shift that tethered their monarchy to international leaders in a way no one expected. The words were bold, historic, and risky. The reporters leaned in. Flashes erupting, their questions echoing down the marble. The king did not flinch. But when the cameras switched off, the king's words to his son were different. He would be leaving soon, quietly, to escape the noise from the media. And the head of security, the man who had never left the prince's side, would be reassigned to another official, effective immediately. The prince swallowed his rage. Later that night, the halls were quiet. The prince walked with purpose, slipping past guards until he reached the garage. Fluorescent lights lit rows of polished SUVs, steel and glass gleaming in the silence. The head of security was already waiting. The prince grabbed him, pushed him back into the black SUV, the door slamming behind them. Weeks of restraint tearing loose in seconds. Hands pulled at clothes, the guard's grip sliding down the prince's back, squeezing his ass, pulling him close. The prince pressed hard against him, hips grinding until the car itself rocked under their weight. Breathless groans filled the space, rough kisses, teeth scraping lips, bodies grinding, pulling tighter, harder. The windows fogged, the leather squeaked beneath them, and his hand hit the glass with a sharp slap. It was raw, reckless, the kind of sex that didn't ask for permission. It just took, knowing this was the last time. When it ended, skin damp, breathing hard in the haze of it, the prince pressed his forehead to his lover's, both silent, both knowing the truth. This was goodbye. Morning came too fast. Luggage was loaded, orders whispered. The head of security left in a waiting SUV, the same kind they'd just claimed for themselves. The prince stood at the window above, body still, face carved from stone. He didn't move, didn't wave, didn't dare let anyone see the break inside him. The car disappeared down the long driveway. The prince turned away, the halls of the estate swallowing him whole. A press conference gave the world one truth, but behind tinted windows, another truth burned and ended. A love affair sealed in the back seat of a car, leaving only silence where passion had lived. Thank you for listening to Stories Between Us, a podcast about queer male connection, tension, and everything that gets felt, but not always said.